Mr. Speaker, I rise today to discuss the war in Iraq. I oppose the surge. We don't need more American troops caught in the crosshairs of a civil war. In short, the problem in Iraq is that we are losing nearly 100 American lives every month, and we are spending $2 billion a week. The solution is not to lose even more lives and to spend even more money. I'm terribly concerned about interjecting American troops into the middle of civil war violence. Who do they shoot at? The Sunni? The Shia? 79% of Iraqis have a mostly negative view of the United States. The American people have paid the ultimate price for this war, and now is not the time to escalate the tragedy even further. The Iraq War has lasted longer than World War II. It has claimed more American lives than the attacks of 9/11, and it has cost more money than the Vietnam War. The military action this Congress authorized in 2002 was for a far different purpose than the war we face today. I voted to authorize the use of force because I did not want Saddam Hussein to give weapons of mass destruction to Al-Qaeda. There are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Why did we stay in Iraq? 61% of Iraqis approve of violent attacks against our own U.S. troops. Does that sound like a grateful country to you? The Iraqi people have had 3 democratic elections, and 3/4 of the senior al-Qaeda operatives have been killed or captured. We wanted the Iraqi people to have a unified and secure government. Unfortunately, the Iraqi government has provided neither unity nor security. After nearly 4 years, the Iraqis still have not achieved reconciliation, still not decided how to share oil revenues, and still not dealt with the militias and the insurgents. For example, 80% of the sectarian violence in Iraq is within a 30-mile radius of Baghdad. Yet despite the fact that the Iraqi security forces outnumber the al-Sadr militia by a ratio of 5 to 1, that's 300,000 versus 60,000, the Maliki government has still not taken action to take out Muqtada al-Sadr and his militia. In his speech, President Bush tells us that he emphasized the importance of earmarks with Prime Minister Maliki. Unfortunately, the Iraqi government has a pattern of not fulfilling its promises with regard to benchmarks. For example, when I was in Iraq in May of last year, the Iraqi government officials told me they would be able to provide security for themselves by December of 2006. Now they're saying they hope to have their own security in place by December of 2007. Similarly, the U.S. surged the number of troops in Baghdad last summer from 7,500 to 15,000 to take out the insurgents. But the Iraqi government reneged on its promise to provide Iraqi troops, and as a result, the insurgents came right back after we left. At this late stage, interjecting more young American troops into the crossfire of an Iraqi civil war is simply not the right approach. We're not going to solve an Iraqi political problem with an American military solution. In closing, regardless of how one feels about the war in Iraq or the proposed surge in troops, as long as our American troops are in harm's way, it is our duty and responsibility to support these troops 100%. May God bless our troops and our country. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, gentleman from Florida.
The Iraq War is the central issue of our time. We are spending $2 billion a week, and we are losing 100 American lives a month. Under these conditions, I feel I owe my constituents my best judgment. Interjecting more young American troops into the crosshairs of an Iraqi civil war is simply not the right approach. I have listened to what our country's most well-respected four-star generals have to say about this matter, and Generals Abizaid, McCaffrey, and Colin Powell have all said that sending more troops into Baghdad now is not the answer. Now, some people will say, if you're not for surging more American troops into Baghdad now, what are you for? What's your plan? I'm for a different kind of surge. I'm for a surge of political progress by the Iraqi government to finally reach a deal on sharing oil revenue. I am for a surge of action in implementing the Iraq Study Group recommendations, which were adopted in a bipartisan, unanimous fashion. I am for a surge of gratitude by the Iraqi people, 61% of whom think it's okay to kill American troops, and 79% have a mostly negative view of the United States. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine your next-door neighbor refuses to mow his lawn and the weeds are all the way up to his waist. You decide you're going to mow his lawn for him every single week. The neighbor never says thank you. He hates you, and sometimes he takes out a gun and shoots at you. Under these circumstances, do you keep mowing his lawn forever? Do you send even more of your family members over to mow his lawn? The situation on the ground in Iraq today is very different than it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Iraq was not in a civil war. Now it is. 3 years ago, Iraq did not have 325,000 of its own security forces to defend itself. Now it does. 3 years ago, we didn't know whether surging more American troops into Baghdad would give us a long-lasting impact. Now we know the answer because we tried the same thing last summer. The benefits were temporary. The body bags were permanent. We're now told that we should trust the Maliki government. I've been down that road before. I personally went to Baghdad and met with the Maliki government officials last summer. I was told that by December of 2006 they would have enough security forces that they need to defend themselves, and we would then be in a position to start bringing our troops home. Now they say, give us another year. We were told that when America sent 15,000 of its own troops to surge in Baghdad last summer, that the Iraqi troops would be right there beside them. Well, the Iraqi troops didn't show up. The benefits of the surge were only temporary. Mr. Speaker, I voted to authorize the use of force in 2002 because I did not want Saddam Hussein to give weapons of mass destruction to Al-Qaeda. Now Saddam is dead, and there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We have remained in Iraq for 4 years because we want a unified and secure Iraq. Unfortunately, it seems the Americans want a unified and secure Iraq more than the Iraqis do. We are not going to solve an Iraqi political problem with an American military solution, and that's my best judgment. May God bless our troops, our president, and our country. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from